Thank you so much for tuning in to Awakening with Katina Love, my beautiful inner lovers. We are a spiritual enlightenment channel where we help you raise your consciousness and become your best version. Please subscribe to our channel by clicking on the red button below, and remember to click on the bell so that you'll be notified of each and every video and audio that we upload every single Wednesday. Today we have a beautiful returning guest, Tanya Henderson, visionary artist. Today, we're going to talk about the soul and how to connect with the soul. So, Tanya, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. So, let's start out by talking about what is the soul? What is that?
The soul.
The soul, the beautiful
Well,
soul.
we are three parts: mind, body, and spirit. The
Hmm.
spirit is the soul. So it's just a part of who we are.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, the soul is the real essence of us, right? So, how do we become more aware of the soul and to stay connected to the soul?
Okay,
Because
so
there's so many people, right? There's so many people wondering, how all of this works. Like, what is the soul? What is the spirit? Who are we as this physical being? And how all of that ties in together.
okay, so you're never really ever not connected. That's just the terminology that people have used because they're not feeling the connection.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that you're not connected, though. You're
Right.
always connected. It's just a matter of how much attention are you giving it. So remember, I said mind, body, spirit. So your body is communicating with you, your mind is communicating with you, and then your soul is also communicating with you. And most of the time, most people are only paying attention to the mind.
Right.
And they don't pay attention to the body until the body is screaming at them, hey, I hurt, stop doing this. Um, and it gives you signals of pain or discomfort.
Right.
The soul is the aspect of ourselves that is generally left out of the equation. So to be connected to it more and deeper, you need to pay attention, because we're all in communication with all these parts of ourselves
Mm-hmm.
all of the time. But our awareness is what's fading in and out,
Right.
not our connection. Um, your energy field, your aura, I believe, is that which we call the soul or the spirit. And a lot of people think that it's somewhere inside of you. But I feel as though it is in and around you, as the aura, the energetic field is part of who you are. And it doesn't go away. It's not fading in and out. It may shrink and expand, but it's never gone.
Right.
And so the way to, be in more conscious awareness of the fact that there's more to you than just the mind is to quiet the mind, to be more mindful, to meditate and quiet yourself so that you can hear. This is what we call that little inner voice, or
Yeah.
the intuition, um, the gut instinct, the sensations that we have, or the thoughts that pop in our head. Those are all communication coming from our soul.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, we as a lot of us as physical beings, the human part of us, we are um, tangible. Like, we want to be able to touch something or feel something. Have you had any experience with feeling your soul? Like, being that the soul, like the body is in the soul, like you were saying, the auric field around us, which goes out about 3 feet, would you say?
Well, there's been some studies about that actually, and they do say that the basic part of who we are, the most registerable
Hmm.
energy, is about 3 feet in all directions.
Yeah, that's
But we also are emanating energy much farther than that. It's actually 30 feet, a field of 30 feet. And it's
wow.
measurable, and so that's showing us that we have an impact. That's why you can walk into a room
And feel the
and
energy.
scan the room, and someone across the room catches your eyes because when you entered, they felt your energy even from way across the room and turned to look at you. So because we're having that kind of impact in the world, 30 feet. I mean, that's
Yes,
quite a bit.
it is. It
But the
is.
3 feet is more of that auric field that we're all more familiar with, the
Hmm.
different layers of the aura. And when you talk about the physical body being part of this equation, if you think about it, the aura, it's out 3 feet from you. And I've met no one in my life that can see all of these layers of the field. Sometimes you can feel it and sense it, but I don't know anybody who sees that. And I'm sure there are those in the world that do, but that outermost layer is the least dense. So as you come in through the layers of the auric field, it becomes denser and denser and denser. So even if you do like I teach people how to see the aura,
Hmm.
or at least a portion of it.
Yeah.
And that's because it's so dense um, near and around the body that it is visible with the eye.
Yeah.
And with just a little bit of knowledge, you could be in a place where you could easily see that. The next layer with the color, um, now that's something that I see in and out of. It's not like I walk around and I'm seeing it all the time,
Hmm. Hmm.
but every once in a while you'll walk by somebody and it's just beaming. There's just so much color that's beaming, you can't miss it. And so what I'm getting at here is that these layers become, they're very light and they become more and more and more dense until they've actually here created this body.
That is pretty fascinating when you think about all that, isn't
Yes,
it?
it's just our bodies are condensed energy,
Yeah.
and the soul is what's really holding it together um, and creating it. And one of the ways that it does that is in unison with the mind. And so
Hmm.
whatever you're thinking is being projected out, and what you think you become. So
Absolutely. So it's like, how have you experienced anybody talking about the feeling of the soul? Like feeling, like seeing it is one thing, but actually feeling that energy around you. Have you?
I think all of us are feeling the energy. I just don't think we understand what it is we're feeling.
Oh, I see.
So if you think about the chakra system,
Hmm.
which people say, oh, well, you have these chakras in your body. It's again, it's just part of the energy of who you are. And I call it the GPS. It's your onboard guidance system.
Yeah.
And that is where you're feeling your soul. Because it's talking to you
Can
all
you
the
say
time.
that again slowly?
The chakra system is where you are feeling your soul. And most typically, you're going to feel it in the third, fourth, and fifth chakras.
Hmm.
So we're talking about the solar plexus, the heart, and the throat.
Okay.
Um, and so everyone, I'm sure, can relate to the idea of you have these moments when you're feeling so good and you're excited and
Yeah.
um, joyful, and you're just expanding. Your energy is expanding during that time, and that is when you are actually in harmony and in balance and in what was the word you used? in connection with their soul.
Mm-hmm.
That's you being
Fully
uh,
there, fully connected.
turned on. Yeah, you're
Beautiful.
turned on. You're totally connected when you're in that state of feeling excited
Yeah.
and
Happy, energetic.
yeah, and vibrant. You know, um, and then there are these times when, and this happens like all the time throughout your day,
Mm-hmm.
where you'll have a thought and you'll suddenly feel like a constriction in your throat or in your heart or in your solar plexus. Now,
Right.
it's not to say that you're not going to feel some of the sensations in the other chakras as well, but those three chakras, most people have felt what I'm talking about and didn't realize that this was the
That's what that was.
communication from the soul, that you're out of
Mm. Out of
alignment.
balance, out of alignment.
You're not thinking
Yeah.
in what I try to say is a right thought. Your soul is um, really, there's almost like a, I don't even want to use the word war, but there's this
Struggle.
fight between
Mm-hmm.
the mind and the soul. The soul's always guiding you, always letting you know when you're not in harmony with it. And your mind is always there to pull you away from being in alignment with
Isn't
it.
that something? Why do you think that is?
Well, the mind is kind of designed when you think about
It's
where it is.
programming, I know, but we agreed to it. I mean, the ego and all of that.
Yes,
It's the
because if
opposite
we
of that
didn't,
which is love and God and source and high
right.
energy and harmony and all of that.
If we don't, if we were to come into this fully knowing who we are,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be as much fun.
So we're on the path of discovery.
We're
Would you say?
here so
Yeah.
that we could learn to know who we are in an experience. We're experiencing who we are. We're deciding who we are,
And
and
remembering.
and somewhat remembering.
Hmm.
But we are also creating that. There's always an expansion in the universe and in consciousness. We're always expanding, and so that means we're discovering and choosing and
Yeah.
discovering and choosing who and what we are.
Isn't that
And
just amazing?
yes, it is.
Fascinating.
Really.
Absolutely.
It's such a eye opener when you understand
Yeah.
what it is I'm talking about. And I know it might be a little confusing to somebody who's like hasn't heard any of this before. Um, but we all have had the experience of being in conversation with somebody and then wanting to say something. A thought comes up and we want to say it, but we don't, and then we feel this tightening in our throat.
Mm.
And if you haven't noticed that before, then I'm engaging you then
Yeah.
to experiment with that and pay attention to those chakras. The throat chakra is very telling when you're in communication with somebody and you don't say what you have to say.
Yeah.
You don't speak your mind, or you're afraid suddenly if I say anything else then I'll hurt somebody's feelings, and then you choke it down. It's affecting the communication, your throat chakra.
Does that mean we're supposed to say something?
Absolutely.
Is that, I mean, it's like the soul is like you, all of you, that which is you. The soul part, the human part is wanting to communicate with that person. But is it that we're too much in our head? Because, most people are trained. We care about too much about what other people think, right? And how they're going to respond, or
Yes.
when it can actually help that person, right?
Right. So I don't want to say a particular thing because I'm not sure how you're going to respond.
Right, right, right.
So I hold off, like, okay, well, maybe it's not the right time, maybe I'll wait for another time to say it. Well, we're energetic beings, and everybody that we're communicating with is picking up what we're putting down.
Yeah.
Now, if I don't verbalize what I'm thinking, then the other person is still picking up what I'm putting down, and they're getting that there's something not right here, but they don't know
Right.
what, because
Okay.
I haven't voiced it.
Mm-hmm.
So then their mind then takes over, and
Uh,
their mind will say, oh, well, they must not like me, or they must not want to communicate with me, or they must not, and because your mind is always attacking, right? I mean, it's always pulling up all these ideas,
mm-hmm.
that maybe I shouldn't be here because I'm not good enough, or, the mind is funny. It's definitely wanting to keep you as safe as possible, and part of that is keeping you from feeling the emotions that come along with being honest with somebody.
I do understand that. I'll tell
It's
you
then
something else.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I was gonna go back to the chakra systems and how they communicate with us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've experienced, because I'm very sensitive to energy as well.
Uh-huh.
I can pick up an item of someone or touch their item, whether it's their phone, their purse, their whatever, if it's a friend, or any item of theirs, their coat, jacket, or whatever, and I'll feel a certain energy. And one day I was touching a relative's item. I was getting ready to meditate, like do my chanting, do my spiritual rituals. And my throat, I could feel it in my throat chakra as I touched and moved their item. My chakra felt some stress. So is it that I feel like I'm feeling their energy because I just touched that's their energy. So maybe their throat chakra was the one that was feeling the stress because it wasn't mine. Mine was good. So it must have been that person at that time because I picked up the item, getting ready to move it at the same time I'm preparing to meditate.
Right.
You
So
know,
you're right. You're absolutely right. You were reading the energy of that person. What we call that psychology, or excuse me, psychometry.
psychometry. Hmm.
Psychometry.
Hmm.
And so when you touch something and you're feeling the energy, you're reading it. And so you were reading that this person was having a problem with communication on some level. And you're feeling it in your own throat chakra, which could be something to even just to show you how you are reading energy. It could have been nothing more than that. What
Hmm.
you did next was you were discerning between, is this my energy or their energy? And you determined it was their energy.
Hmm.
And so by determining that and discerning that, then you can go back and look at that as an experience of how you are relating to energy. Not that it's your issue, but now
Right.
you know something about someone else. So, the reading of the energy, the discerning of the energy, and then you're on the right track, because you have to be able to discern, is it mine or is it not? And a lot of empathic people will say, oh, I can't leave the house because I feel all this energy. But if you really understand that it's not your energy, and you understand how your system is working, then you can do things to not have that affect you
Yeah.
anymore.
Why
And
would someone feel they can't leave the house? Is it because someone else is feeling that they can't leave the house?
well, there's certain days where energy just, the planet's energy, the stars are aligned in a certain way, and it's creating a particular energy on the planet. If you know about astrology at all, they talk about how these planets are all aligned in this way, and this is square to that, and whatnot, and we got a trine over here. Well, what they're saying is that these things are known to create a particular energy here on the planet that we all have to work through that day.
Okay.
And some of these energies are for us to actually work through our issues. Let's just pull out Mercury retrograde, because that's one that most people know that that's going to disrupt things. And when
Hmm.
a planet goes into a retrograde, what they're actually telling us is that we need to revisit some issues that we thought we had dealt with,
Okay.
to make sure that that's where we're really at with it. It's an opportunity to respond to something differently. So that's what I'm talking about. So the moons and the stars and the planets and the suns and the universes all align in a particular way, a person who's sensitive to the energy feels that, and sometimes it's just too much, and
Ah,
they can't leave the house because it's affecting them so strongly.
I see what you're saying.
Now, what I'm suggesting here is that those people have work to do on themselves. All right, they're not being able to, some of it they can't discern, is this mine or not mine? And if you, seriously, I think if you can't discern if it's yours or not yours, it's yours. It's yours.
It
And
is what it
you
is,
have
right?
something.
It is
Yeah,
what it is.
we all have our stuff that we need
We
to
do.
work
We
through.
really do. We really do.
And that's just one of the ways the universe shows us. So you were good with putting that item down and realizing that it wasn't you or your energy.
Hmm.
But if you were in any state of confusion about that, then you have to go to the place where, well, I must have an issue, and this item was helping me to recognize the fact that I have an issue here. And then you would need to search your soul a little bit, like, okay, well, what is this that's bothering me? What do I need to release? What do I need to say to somebody?
Right.
And
That's amazing. I mean, even like just say, okay, I live family members, their vibration isn't um, as high of a frequency as mine is. So I would even notice sometime, like when I do my laundry, I would feel, I'm like, this isn't my energy. I got to clear my clothes now. Like, oh my God. And I would feel different sensations. And I would be like, wow, my clothes are really communicating. You know, this last person that used a washer and dryer, even people that are sensitive energy who go out to do their laundry at a laundromat or whatever, you know, that energy is energy, and energy is everywhere, and people leave their energy around, right? So it's like sometimes I'm really blessed and my clothes are just like they're okay. I don't have to clear them. Then there's other times when I can feel the energy of the other family member, and I'm like, I know who that is. Isn't that amazing? Like how we have energy signatures, and we can pick up and just be able to sense and tell things just from touching. You know what I mean? So it's
or
like,
even walking into a room, you can just
yes,
feel the
walking into
energy
the
when you
room.
walk in the room, and you can know that there had been somebody there recently, that you're
Right,
familiar with that energy because they are leaving some of it behind them. and
right.
and you can pick up on that, definitely.
Yeah, it's pretty
um,
amazing.
it's really important, though, that if you are sensing an energy that you are uncomfortable with, that energy is telling you that you have something here to work on.
Okay.
Those are subtle clues. Those are things that you should really pick up on and work on, because if you don't work on them when they're little like that, they just get bigger and bigger and bigger until it's some, you know, blown up drama in your life. And then you're really having to deal with it. It's in your face and you can't get away from it. So it's best to deal with it and the more subtler, when you're feeling an energy and it doesn't feel good to you, you have to ask yourself, why doesn't this feel good to me? What's in me that is making me feel this way?
Hmm.
Because there's something there. There's something there that the universe is putting in front of you to work through. And it'll keep doing it until you work through it. So, and it gets bigger and bigger with each time. So if you don't deal with it the first time it's presented to you, then it'll be presented to you again in a bigger way. And if you don't deal with it, then it'll be presented to you again in a much bigger way until one day it's so big you cannot not deal with it.
I understand. Hmm. We could talk about this forever, but I did want to get in, talk about your soul portraits. Like, what inspired you to do the soul portraits, and what are they?
Well, I call them personal energy portraits, and it's really about me tuning into the energy of the person that I'm sitting with
Mhm.
and giving them a clear vision of where they're at, basically. Where are you at? Where do you think you're going? This is where you're really going. These are the things that are perhaps holding you back. Um, so let me explain this a little bit in the same terms of what we've been talking about. Every thought that you think is a particle of energy. It's leaving you. And it's being tossed about. It's held in your energy field. It doesn't ever go away. Every thought that's ever been thought still exists. And a lot of people are calling these thought forms when there's a particular place, let's say, that has accumulated multiple people thinking the same thing, and then this becomes a thought form.
Mm.
Um, so these thoughts are always leaving us. They're always in your field, and they're always being dropped everywhere we go. We're leaving energy, bits of energy, and it's just because we're having all these thoughts. You realize we're having 70, 80,000 thoughts a day.
Wow.
Most of them are completely unconscious of.
Right, right. Because it's
And
hard to fathom how, like, can we really have all those thoughts? Like, how? It's not they're not conscious thoughts.
no,
Not all of them.
they're subconscious programming. So when you are thinking, your conscious mind shuts off and your subconscious mind turns on. So you can be thinking and walking at the same time, right? You can be
Yeah,
thinking and doing something at the same time because your thinking is part of your conscious mind and your walking is part of your subconscious programming.
got it.
So let's use the car analogy. It's a pretty good one. When you get in the car for the very first time to drive the car,
Hmm.
you're nervous, and there's this energy about making sure that you do everything in the right order and
Right, right.
you do it all right, and you don't you make sure that you are doing everything in a particular way. When you first get in that car for the first time, it's a nerve-wracking experience for most people. But 10 years later, nobody is doing that.
Right.
You're just getting in the car and you're doing everything automatically. You're not really even thinking about it anymore
Hmm.
because it's become part of your subconscious programming.
Got it.
You've taught your subconscious to do these particular actions, and therefore you no longer have to think about it. So you can drive the car and be thinking about something else.
Okay.
All
Wonderful.
right. So all of these thoughts then are still here with you. And as a reader, what I'm doing is I'm going into the energetic field is the way I'm seeing it. Or another way of looking at this is also being in communication with the other person's higher self. Okay. So we think of ourselves being here, and then we think of our higher self as being way out there somewhere. Right?
Right? That
But
higher self, by the way, is that the soul? That is the soul, is it? We have
that is,
all these
I
terms and labels on ourselves, you know?
That's how I believe it to be, that
Yeah,
you
me
are
too.
actually in communication then with that other part of yourself that most of the time we're ignoring, right?
Hmm.
So the mind is playing over here and your soul's playing over here, and they're both talking at the same time, but this one's much louder and it sounds like you.
The mind, the mind,
The
the
mind.
mind, yeah.
Right.
Why is that? Well, the soul is more subtle, the intuition, the guidance.
It's really,
The higher self is more subtle. Why is that most of the time?
I think it's just because we're conditioned to not
Ah, yeah.
um, listen to it. We're conditioned in that way because I've kind of felt in my own life, and maybe there's people out there that'll feel like it's the same for them, but I believe that it's the first thought that you have.
Yeah,
So let me use an
yeah.
example that Neil Donald Walsh, if you know about the
Hmm.
Conversations with God book, uses. And that is that you're walking down the street and you see a homeless person on the street and you reach in your pocket thinking, oh, I should give them my change. and you pull it out,
Yeah.
and then you've gotten closer to them, and you're like, oh, but I won't be able to get a cup of coffee later or whatever.
Right. We start second guessing that
Right. So
intuition.
that's the second thought. So the second thought says, okay, well, I'll slip my hand back in. But then the third thought comes up and like, oh, well, maybe I won't need that cup of coffee. But now you've already walked past the person and you're like, well, I'm not going to turn around now,
Uh-huh.
because that's the mind again.
Uh-huh.
And so that first thought was, give your change to that man.
Right.
And in essence, what that's saying is that be me, be the source for that person. That first thought is saying, be me, be the source.
Yeah.
And had you given that to that person, you would have known yourself to be that, which we actually are.
That's beautiful. I love that.
It's beautiful. It's really wonderful to think that. So that's the first thought that comes to you. And we're getting these thoughts all of the time. And especially when we meditate. People seem to think that if you meditate, the goal then is to absolutely clear your mind and not think of anything at all. And I'm
Right.
telling
That's
you,
impossible.
it's impossible. Your mind is designed to think all of the time. So what you're really trying to do is slow the mind down.
Yeah.
Because as you slow it down, you become mindful, you stay in this place, you put your attention on your breath. When you put your attention on your breath, your mind is occupied.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
And then you have a gap when the mind isn't doing anything. It's just, it's quiet for a minute. And then those thoughts come into your mind from that larger part of you, the soul.
That's all.
And you want to be sure that you're listening at that point. You don't want to go, oh, I'm thinking about this thing, I shouldn't be thinking about that, and shut everything down. Eventually, the soul is communicating with you, and it's trying to give you some kind of guidance or direction.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's telling you what to do next all of the time.
It's just a matter of trusting. That's something that we all need to work on, trusting that inner guidance. It's
Absolutely.
always right, always leading us in the right direction.
The thing is that most people are thinking that it's going to come as this big, huge aha, like I'm going to have this big magic wand over my head, and then suddenly I'm going to know exactly what I should be doing. And it's not. It's a subtle little thought that says, hey, you need to get up and go do your laundry. Or,
Yep. Do
hey,
this, do that, do
call
that.
this person. And it comes in these teeny tiny little increments.
They
And if
do.
you follow it, well, then you're in complete communication with your soul.
And that's
Well, most people can't do that, at least not 100% of the time. We're not all gurus sitting cross-legged on a mountain. So we have to follow it the best that we can.
right.
And what I'm doing then with my portraits is I'm helping people by painting the stuff, these visions that I get, because when I sit with somebody, sometimes it's like a picture.
And they're all so beautiful.
And they're also different.
Mm-hmm.
It's just based on the person.
Yeah.
And I'm really in communication with their soul. What does their soul want them to know that they haven't been able to communicate to this person? And so I get the visions and I paint the visions, and then I'm explaining what I've painted to the person. That's the reading. Because everything that's transpiring on this painting is about them. It's about where they're at, what they're not listening to, what they need to do next that they haven't heard, that kind of thing. So it's really about communicating soul to soul.
I love that.
And it just depends on how you look at this, because if you think of yourself as being here and your higher self being way out there somewhere, then again, it's the same thing we do with the idea of God. We're here on the planet and God's out there somewhere in the universe. And,
like separate from us, right?
We're separate, yeah.
Which is totally not the case at all.
We're not separate.
That soul part of you is God.
Correct.
So there is no separation.
There's no separation. You cannot separate yourself from yourself.
Right.
So when we talk about being in communication, how do we not disconnect? It's really about how do we stay out of our own way? How do we stay out of our mind? How do we listen more carefully? It's about listening.
That's so
That's all
true.
we have to do. The soul is communicating with you all of the time, all day long. It never leaves you. You are it. Without it,
Face
you,
yourself, right? Face yourself. Embrace that.
yeah. So when you quiet your mind and you slow yourself down and you allow the thoughts to come and you move with the thoughts that are coming to
And
you,
breathe more. Breathe. Breath is another way to connect.
breathe and believe.
Slow
And
down and
don't
breathe.
allow the mind to overshadow
Right.
the soul. The
Right.
mind is designed to completely keep you safe. And it had great purposes in the past, you know. There might be a bear around the corner and we need to be alert for that.
Right.
You know? But in today's society, the mind isn't, it's more of a detriment because we don't know how to use it. And it's important to,
Need to get out of our minds.
yes, exactly
Quit thinking
it.
so
So
much. Listen, just feel more, right?
just get out of your mind, be
Yeah.
out of your
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah. Right.
So, so the portraits are about helping people connect with that part of
Oh,
themselves.
that's beautiful. So if someone wanted to get a portrait, how would they reach out to you? And are there any samples of your work on your website?
Yes, you could go to tanya-henderson.com and there are all different examples of a couple of different ways that I'm doing the portraits. One is a real basic, quick little reading. The other one is more revolved around the art. So we have the regular ones and the larger ones that are for those people who really dig art and original art and
Yeah.
especially personalized.
Yeah.
Um, so you can go to my website. It's TONYA-HENDERSON.com and look for that. And there's, you know, contact me buttons and phone numbers and things where you can contact me and set up an appointment.
Beautiful. Do you have any events or shows coming up with your art?
I will be in Indiana, in Graybill, Indiana. I'm not sure if there's appointments left there or not. They would have to contact the facility. And at the moment, I can't think of the place where I'm going.
That's
So,
okay. They can go to your
but
website,
you can
right?
find
Or you're on Facebook, right? Is it you can post it
it.
somewhere there on
Yeah,
your
I am on Facebook. You can look under a Reverend Tanya Henderson or Creative Spirit Studios, and it'll be under my events tab. It's also on the website. So there's only one metaphysical shop in Graybill, Indiana. So if you happen to be in
Okay.
the area, you know where I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But other than that, I have a couple of other things going on. I do have one expo at the end of or a little fair actually, at the end of the month. But I am offering another opportunity for people coming up at the end of the year, New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, to have a 2020 vision painted for them.
Oh, that's
This is
awesome.
going to be slightly different than what I've offered in the past. It's a kind of a
Nice.
new package. It's
Sounds
going to be,
exciting.
yeah, it's going to be done on super high quality canvas with professional paints, and I'm going to take an hour. So it'll be kind of a combination of portrait and coaching session to prepare people for the next year, the 2020. And because I feel like this is going to be a really big year for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so again, you can always contact me through Facebook or on my website to set up that kind of appointment too. I'm only offering 10 appointments for that. So they're going to be a little bit limited, but it's going to be exciting.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Tanya, for coming on and talking to us about the soul, how to connect with the soul and your soul portraits. Thanks for being a
Well,
guest.
thank you.
And thank you for tuning in to Awakening with Katina Love. Namaste.